Hey everybody, I'm just back. I said I would do a little bit of a video of how I am priming with my new airbrush. I have practiced a bit with my airbrush just to try to get some control and understand the dual action lever and how it releases paint and distance with the airbrush with the miniatures and paper and things. This is new for me, but I thought I would kind of just show you guys what I'm doing, and for those that are just interested in basics with airbrushing, not that I'm an expert, but just ways that this could be done, might be able to get something from this. So this is essentially an old wood elf miniature that I had from years ago that I've never painted. Both of them are. This one is as is, and this one I actually airbrushed and primed just now. What I ended up using was surface primer. It's an acrylic polyurethane by Vallejo. I saw other folks using this. It seemed to provide a really nice thin coat, and that's really what I was looking for. I'm not an expert on this, but one of the things that I think airbrushes do is it allows you to really put thin amounts of paint and potentially smooth coats. Now, one of the problems with this is that it's gray, and so are these guys. And so it was a little difficult as I was first starting to release the paint to see where I was making a difference. So I started to actually just work on the black base just to get an idea of the release points of the paint. But then as more and more I got more and more used to it, I started to work on the model. Now, you can clearly see a difference in the Vallejo gray primer to the gray plastic. At least I can off camera. If you take a look here, there's definitely a different shade. And so once that started becoming clear, it was easy to finish the model. I did not take out mold lines for these guys. These are guys that I'm not really planning on doing a whole lot with. They're just practice figurines. Really, I'm doing it just using them just to practice painting miniatures before working on the ones that I want to use in the game. 40K for tabletop. So, just to, not that this recipe is the be-all end-all, but I think for some folks that are doing airbrushing, how you mix your paints and things is important, and there's a bit of variation depending on the person doing the airbrushing. I didn't use this gray primer alone. It's actually not that thin when you take it out of here. I ended up doing about equal amounts of this surface primer to RO, reverse osmosis water, or distilled water you can get from the store. I used RO water because I have that. In addition to that, I added a few drops of Windex. Basically, when I say a few drops, so the ratio would probably be 1 of this paint to 1 of that distilled water, perhaps 0.25, not even like a quarter, maybe even less, of some Windex. Some people use a Windex instead of water, like they just use total Windex. I just have been using a mixture of all of them, and I actually even tried out some drops of this thinner medium by Vallejo. I actually put, probably for the 8 drops of paint, I put 2 drops of this with the paint first before putting the water in, just to try this out. It's made specifically to thin acrylic paints, and so I use this as well. So I think that the message from that is you can read up on the internet if you want to know how to mix these paints, but people use sort of a purified water and they use sort of a Windex. Some people use isopropyl alcohol, and even thinner mediums to a degree, I think. And so I use just a mixture of a couple of them, primarily water and paint. Now, I didn't have any problems clogging, when using that. Who knows? I also just did a thorough clean of my brush when finishing this. I know some people will just sort of run some alcohol through it or something through it just in between paints. I just did a cleaning, even though I'm about to do another miniature. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to do some airbrushing of this guy with the Vallejo polyurethane white primer. The only reason I'm using this is just for the purposes of this video. I think it would be easier for you to see the white primer on the gray model, and I will try that just to show you just how it looks and how it works. Be right back once I have everything mixed. Hey everybody, so I am back with my getting ready to prime here. I will have you know this is the first time I've ever done any sort of work on camera, and I think it's because well, I don't know. I've never tried this setup, so working in front of a camera here. So, but here I will start to try this out, and I'm going to start with the black base just to get used to the trigger action again. Sometimes you can just switch with the dual action to just air, to either blow paint that's collecting or dry things off, which is a nice aspect of the airbrush, or a dual action airbrush. Sometimes I think I release paint too quickly and it starts to pool. Well, there I go right there. And probably from not moving enough as well. But it just takes practice, I think. Behind the bow here is a spot I noticed it's harder for it to collect paint, so I'm going to focus just on that spot. It's kind of dark. Just blowing away some spots where the paint droplets have collected a bit as I'm getting used to this control. Hey everybody, so this is my first crack at priming plastic models with an airbrush using acrylic polyurethane surface primer with Vallejo, and then my own sort of mixture of thinning agents for the airbrush. Here's a wood elf with no primer. This is the gray primer. And then this is what I just did in front of you, and that's the white primer. The white primer, I do find the gray primer, and it may have just been my mixture. It also may have been, it may be that, I'm not sure how much you can see it through there, but I've pooled in a couple of spots with this primer on the white primer. It might just be that my coat is just really light. But you can probably see here, just in a couple of spots, it has pooled a bit, and that's also me just playing with it, getting too close, using too much pressure on the trigger and having too much come out at once. I think part of that is just adjusting it, but one of the things that I do really like is that with a combination of those paints, the airbrush technique, I think it's created a very thin primer. I've used the Army Painter primers in the past, which are meant to be a paint and the primer all at once. That's what I normally use. And so because of that, there's a drastic difference between this and that. This obviously needs a coat of paint on it, perhaps even a little bit more primer, I'm not sure. I have to look at it a bit more. I think it's probably good. I think it's good to catch, good enough to catch paint now, although I can see a couple of areas like right in here where it might need a little bit more of a blast. This one here may be the same, actually. Because I was working with gray on gray, it was kind of tough for me to see, but I think it worked out pretty well though. And I mean, you can clearly see that it's got something on it. I think it's worked out pretty good. I just think maybe in some spots, just like when you spray paint, and I've heard this before with a rattle can, or spray paint can, you get the same issues of coverage with angles and things like that. So, okay, well, I hope this was helpful for somebody, and I will be doing more in the future of using the airbrush to prime, base paint, and then eventually doing shadowing. Okay, thanks everybody. Take care.